Hey, it's Sela Social Studies.
Hey guys, what's up? And welcome back to Sealess Social Studies. Today we're going to be discussing urbanization. During the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution was booming in the United States. Unskilled factory jobs were now a dime a dozen in the cities, which was appealing to many unskilled and uneducated people. The Industrial Revolution and the benefits of the Transportation Revolution helped to connect cities and make movement easier through the use of trains. A large percentage of Americans moved from rural farmlands to the urban city to chase their dreams. At the same time, millions of immigrants are settling in the cities, often clashing with nativists, culminating in the problems of early urbanization in the United States. When Americans thought about the city life, oftentimes words like lights, trolleys, skyscrapers, romance, and action raced across their brains. While American cities allowed the upper and middle class to live lavish lifestyles, the American dream was merely just a fantasy to the poorer urban dwellers. Most of the unskilled and poor Americans and immigrants moved to slums that were overcrowded and full of crime, pollution, and disease. This was the life that was reality for millions of urban Americans. Most of the urban poor, including the vast majority of the new immigrants, lived in cheap, poorly designed, overcrowded apartments called tenements. Most of the time, tenement housing was very disgusting. People would be jam-packed, sometimes 20 at a time, in these little apartments with little or no airflow, and only enough windows to allow a small bit of sunlight through. If your apartment wasn't next to an alley or a taller building, that is. There would be very little room to sleep, as many men would sleep in the same room, on the floors and under tables. Many times, different rooms would be rented out to different people, giving the owner more money and luxuries while the poor lived poorer. The original design of the dumbbell tenement did not include private bathrooms in the apartments. The tenants would use an outhouse or a chamber pot to go in and dump the pot out the window, sometimes on unsuspecting patrons below. If the skyscraper was the crown jewel of the city, the tenement was its dreadful stone. In 1878, a publication offered $500 to an architect who could provide the best design for inner-city mass housing. James Ware won this contest with his plan for a dumbbell tenement. Shaped like a weightlifter's dumbbell, the building was thin on the inside and wider at the extremities. There were air vents located at each end, but they were mostly packed with trash. The structures were filthy, overcrowded, dark, with the foul stench in the air, and with people packed in them like sardines. Diseases like smallpox, cholera, yellow fever, and tuberculosis would spread like wildfire throughout its population on a regular basis. Infants suffered the most. Almost 25% of babies born in the late 19th century in century cities died before reaching the age of 1. The closeness of the buildings would also be a catalyst for rampant fires in the cities. The city stank, the air stank, the river stank, the people stank, everything stank. There were little or no public services, and although public sewers were improving, disposing of human waste was increasingly a problem. People used private outhouses which overflowed with a passing rainstorm. Old sewage pipes dumped the waste directly into rivers or bays, which were often the very same used as water sources to drink. This left cities with no clean water, no public health regulations, and no ways of getting rid of the garbage. There were many negative effects of urbanization. Trash was also dumped on the streets or in the water sources. While many reformers fought for better sewers, water purification, and trash removal, the truth was that in inner-city sanitation, problems were often overlooked and disease was the main benefactor. Desperate people will often resort to theft or violence to put food on the table when the factory wages would not suffice. Youths who dreaded a life of a factory worker or being destitute sometimes roamed the streets in gangs. Cities became the epicenters of criminal activity, and most cities did not have an organized police force. Things like gambling, prostitution, and alcoholism were widespread. People who gambled hoped to get rich quickly. Prostitutes gained additional income with little effort, and the alcohol gave the poor a means to escape the destitute life they were living. The police force, if there was one, was underpaid and understaffed, with the allure of a quick bribe could purchase a better piece of justice. The second issue that cities faced was high crime rates. The rise of industrialization, in addition to the growth of cities, led to the creation of the new middle class. Urban life in the late 1800s and early 1900s had much to be desired. The mass migration of people moving into the cities and getting these jobs created a new class system in the United States. 3 million immigrants belonged to the emerging middle class. The middle class was the new economic level between the rich and the poor and included merchants, professionals, and master craftspeople. The middle class would find solace, entertainment, and enriched cultural life in places like music clubs in the cities. So urbanization was never really a fantastic thing. Most of the immigrants living there were the destitute and the poor, living in tenement houses, and we are going to continue this theme throughout this chapter of urbanization. I'll see you next time.